Network Entertainment.
Who's ready for story time?
What's going on? This is Xavier Woods, aka Austin Creed.
Let me talk to you.
Hello, WWE Universe from the Philippines. This is Charlotte.
Hey everyone, this is Jeff Cobb.
I have to finish the story.
We are pretty deadly. Yes, boy. Yes, boy.
Run!
Bang! The sniper is shooting you down. This is TMDK's Robbie Eagles.
Hey, this is the Cosmic Cactus, Paul London.
Hello, my name is Ilya Dragunov, the Czar, the NXT champion, and you're listening to...
And you're listening to...
And you're listening.
And you are listening
And you're listening
to the Wrestling Podcast.
The Wrestling Podcast.
The Wrestling Podcast.
The Wrestling Podcast.
to the Wrestling Podcast. Yeah.
You're listening to the longest-running weekly episodic Filipino wrestling podcast. This is the Wrestling Podcast. Stancy and Romoran checking in. Happy Halloween, everybody. It is the week, that long weekend / long week na you can basically take the week off and it'll be fine. But if you own a small business or a large business, sorry na lang. Everybody else would like to celebrate their holidays with their loved ones, both living and deceased. So,
baka naman gusto na namang pahinga din. You know, it's just a few days. The whole week isn't The whole week isn't a holiday, diba? May couple of days on this week na may pasok.
Technically, October 31 and November 3 may pasok. Pero kung nag-leave yung mga... sorry na lang.
Yeah.
All right, we have a lot to talk about for our Halloween episode of the Wrestling Podcast. But let's get into some housekeeping and let's start off with the Patreon program, which is alive and well. In fact, our patrons have been getting some treats in the form of the watch parties we've been holding, especially as we close out 2023.
Yes, sir. Okay, so we when we did the last quiz night, syempre, our friends over at Hobby Stadium already locked us down, low-key, for a Survivor Series watch party. And with the way things are going, kahit mapa War Games man yan or mapa traditional Survivor Series featuring the Coalition versus the Bloodline and, you know, the Judgment Day, we're all in for it. We're all here. Survivor Series happening over at Hobby Stadium over in New Manila, Quezon City. All you got to do is come by, just have fun with us, and we'll have fun on a Sunday morning. That's going to be do you have the date already for the show?
Yeah, for Survivor Series, it is November 25 in the US, so November 26 dito sa atin.
Yon, November 26. That's a Sunday morning, usually 8:00 a.m. start time. We'll all have... Sorry?
It's 9 a.m. kasi tapos yung DST.
Oh, yeah, right. Sorry. Nga pala. 9 a.m. So you have a little more grace to get up a little later in the morning. So that's good for all of us. So we'll all have fun. We'll vibe together. We'll have a fine time watching our favorites go at it. And wala pang na-announce the match. Pero syempre, alam natin kung saan papunta siya. So it's going to be at Hobby Stadium. Stay tuned for pricing details. But like last time, you can just come by and walk in and buy tickets at the door. It will get you. We'll work out the freebies, the free drinks that you'll get from our friends over at Hobby Stadium. But syempre, let's patronize them as well. Let's have fun and indulge in their food and drink. Kasi, you know, it's some of the best that we have when it comes to cafes and hobby places, right? And syempre, other than the watch parties, syempre, we have our Patreon program. The chief benefit there is syempre, other than supporting the podcast and what we do here, you get to join a server of like-minded individuals. We talk about a whole bunch of stuff from sports to wrestling itself to other general interests, music, movies, video games, fashion, sneakers, a whole bunch of stuff. All have fun. Syempre, you also get preferential rates when you opt to join our pasabays from online stores, WWE Shop, Shop AEW, Pro Wrestling Tees, Roots of Fight, a whole bunch of other places you can get wrestling merch from. Kahit saan, kung tatanggapin ng credit card namin, bibilhin namin yun for you. So as you can see from our social media, a whole bunch of customers and patrons and friends alike have been enjoying their legitimate merch and otherwise from abroad. Syempre, legit yung ginagawa namin for them. So if you have been eyeing some merch of your favorite wrestlers, of your favorite companies, and whether shirts pa yan or tank top, sando, jogging pants, mask, sorry, what?
Piece or shorts or polos, type of apparel.
Yeah, so we buy all of that, and it's proven, guaranteed that people are satisfied with them. So, syempre, I mean, you can still opt in or pasabays without being a patron, pero mas mahal ng konti. We'll be honest with you, mas mahal ng konti yung presyo na. Yun, a whole bunch of benefits. Syempre, you can also choose to unsubscribe after a few months if your circumstances have changed. If you feel like you've supported us enough, that's totally fine. Walang pilitan. Di kami magtatampo. We just thank you for your support. It's your little way of showing that you like what we do here in the podcast. If you throw us a bone, a cup of coffee our way. So yun. So sign up again, patreon.com/wrestling podcast. Ikaw pa na nabanggit for $5. That is around 275 thereabouts in this current exchange rate.
Yeah. One last thing on the pasabays. Black Friday is coming up in a little less than a month. So we're actually gearing up for that pasabay run because prices are surely dropping across the major stores in the US. And we're pretty sure na marami ring magte-take advantage nun to get their wrestling merch fix. So please watch out for it on our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/wrestling podcast. Slide us a DM. And let's get to work on getting you that piece of wrestling merch you've been eyeing or that you've added to your wish list. All right. Because it is Halloween, it is only appropriate that we talk about one of the embodiments of the horror genre in our industry, and that is the late, great Bray Wyatt. Now, when he passed away, kailan ba to? August 25, our time?
Yeah, a couple of months ago.
When he passed away, we were all so shocked and we barely got to process it. I actually wasn't on that episode, but Sina Rose and Emil, they got to talk about his passing for about 10-15 minutes. And I think after the last couple of months have passed, medyo nagsubside na yung conversations about Bray Wyatt. Maybe we figured it was time to talk about Bray Wyatt in a loving way for his tribute, diba? We never really got to do like a proper tribute episode, and we figured that this is the time to actually do that, to honor Bray Wyatt and everything he brought creatively to this business. I was listening to yung interview ni Karrion Kross kay Chris Van Vliet, and Kross was talking about all of the plans that he and Bray were putting together, and apparently they were supposed to work together in WrestleMania 39, and how he was really all in on trying to incorporate yung dalawang gimmicks nila. Kasi diba si Karrion Kross, medyo intimidating and menacing din. And then you add the supernatural and horror aspect of Bray Wyatt's character, then it would have really made for a very different addition to the WrestleMania 39 card. And to hear Bray Wyatt's colleagues talk about everything he brought to the business, both as a human being and as a creative, it leaves me wondering, about just what we're really missing out on now that Bray Wyatt will never get to perform for us again.
I'll be honest, medyo na-off ako ng kinuwento ni Karrion Kross yun. It's easy to make up these things kasi when you when the opportunity is passed, diba? So for all we know, kasi he might have just been, telling the story for clout. There were a whole bunch of different rumors around WrestleMania surrounding Bray Wyatt's plans. We knew at first na Bobby Lashley was kind of slated, and then they were already doing a thing. They were in the middle of starting the thing. Tapos na-derail lang kasi nagkasakit si Bray, diba? So I don't quite know how true those stories of Karrion Kross's are. So I don't want to jump on them. I don't want to validate them. It can very well be just him drumming up some buzz for himself because he hasn't been featured as much lately. But yeah, we talked about this the day he died, actually, the day he passed away, we recorded an emergency episode and we basically paid tribute. Pero you didn't get the chance to pay tribute with us. And again, I wanted to reiterate for those who haven't listened to the special Bray emergency episode. He really was one of a kind. And it really is unfortunate because alam mo yung things na he had so much to give, and I think he was a wellspring of creativity, of imagination, that I knew that even though the current stuff that he was putting out wasn't quite hitting, especially for me, I knew that may chance naman siyang bumawi, diba? He's that good, he's that ingenious, and I know that given enough opportunities, I think he would have rebounded to something that I and a whole lot of other people would have enjoyed as well.
There's something that I wanted to really highlight about Bray Wyatt's run, and that was when he introduced the Firefly Funhouse. Because right around that time, I was also kind of dressing like Mr. Rogers, whether I realize it or not. I just like the look ni Mr. Rogers. And then Bray Wyatt started doing it, and people are saying, oh, he's taking Mr. Rogers and really twisting him into something demented. And sobrang na-appreciate ko yun, because to take a very beloved children's property and then to just make it all sick and twisted and demented for the horror genre in wrestling, diba? It was so out of the box. And I appreciated how he really took that idea and ran all the way with it, because even though it seemed so innocuous and innocent nung simula, you could see the bits and pieces that would leave you unsettled after watching those initial Firefly Funhouse vignettes. So the fact that he was able to pull that off, and kunwari, someone like me who doesn't like horror, convinced me to buy a Firefly Funhouse t-shirt because I was such a fan of that gimmick, really is a testament to the brilliance of Bray Wyatt's creativity. So whether it was everything he was doing at the start of the Wyatt family, diba, when he was taking inspiration from Waylon Mercy and from sino yung movie character? Max.
Basta Robert De Niro from Cape Fear.
There. The Cape Fear character, diba? Those two were the reported inspirations for the initial Bray Wyatt character, to what he became when he was with Matt Hardy, to the Firefly Funhouse, the Fiend, and then the Uncle Howdy stuff. You took the words right out of my mouth, Ro. Wellspring of creativity. And there is such a huge void in wrestling now that Bray Wyatt is no longer with us.
Yeah. Again, I'm also not the biggest fan of horror, and we'll talk about this a little more later when we kind of philosophize about the place of horror in pro wrestling. Pero you really do have to appreciate and protect yung mga creative minds like that in a really tumultuous industry in showbiz like pro wrestling. It's easy because to get caught up in unimaginative, uninspired stories in wrestling. You can only run like a soap opera feud or rivalry so many times. So whenever somebody comes along may ibang idea, when he thinks out of the box, you really do have to show them the proper care, the proper nurturing, because they don't always come along. And now that Bray's gone, I honestly do not know where we're going to get that next. There's Matt Hardy, but Matt Hardy hasn't really done that in a while. No one comes to mind really for now as to who could be the next Bray Wyatt, not necessarily as a horror character, but someone who is just that creative and that imaginative.
Yeah. Let's get into some scariest Bray Wyatt memories, or the scariest Bray Wyatt character even. Kasi nga, it's Halloween, but it's spooky season. So this is one of the ways that we are paying tribute to the Eater of Worlds. So if you were listening to last week's episode when we highlighted Bray Wyatt in the 5 scary and creepy things in pro wrestling, I already mentioned yung para sa akin, yung pinaka-scary visual ni Bray Wyatt, which was him as the Fiend walking out with the lantern that looked like his severed head. So that image, diba, with his mask and then the music pa of Code Orange, diba, hurt, heal, all of that coming together was just a package that would leave you up at night.
Yes. We talked about this as well before nung previous episode, the previous Halloween episode, but the Fiend stuff was really scary. The design ng Fiend, the demonic design of his look was genuinely horrifying, was really scary. And the way he brought that on Alexa Bliss and then gave her own demonic figure in Lily was also really terrifying. The Lily doll itself is super freaky. I think it's not mentioned enough how actually scary that thing is, to the point that nagamit din nila for a jump scare, as I mentioned in the last episode. So other than that though, when the Firefly Funhouse debuted, I thought that was genuinely creepy without the Fiend's interference. I didn't actually think that the Mr. Rogers character needed the Fiend, although it was a nice dichotomy na may, other side pala siya. But, dressing up as a seemingly sinister children's show host with a bunch of puppets that are also pretty fucking scary, especially see Mercy the Buzzard, right? And Sister Abigail the Witch. Yeah. It's really one of those things that only a fucked up creative mind like Bray Wyatt can come up with. And I thought like that was the very peak. I enjoy the weird Waylon Mercy character, even though you can easily get lost because he speaks in a lot of riddles. But I think the whole perversion of the children's show host, the children's show genre, was really, really nice. And I think it was one of the most creative things that I've seen, not just in horror, but in all of pro wrestling.
I just realized na this is meant to be a Halloween episode, diba? We're paying tribute to Bray Wyatt, pero very much in theme din siya sa ginagawa natin pag-undas, diba? Which is to commemorate those who are no longer... And with Bray Wyatt having passed away a couple of months ago, I just realized mid-recording na medyo double, very layered itong ginagawa natin for Bray Wyatt. Zoom, let's get meta here. Did the horror gimmick work for you with Bray Wyatt? Because for me, when Bray Wyatt started doing his thing, what captivated me was the fact that no one else was doing it. And I am of the belief in business na if no one else is doing it, it doesn't mean na no one else should keep doing it. It opens up an opportunity for someone to come in and do something different, and that's exactly what Bray Wyatt did.
The thing about the first Bray Wyatt incarnation for me was that it wasn't full on horror. It was still, thriller. May pagka Senyor Aguila pa siya nun. So, that's not really, horrific. It's not really over the top supernatural horror. It was just really grounded in reality. And to me, I think there was a place for that in wrestling, kasi there have been cult leaders, there have been Ravens, there have been CM Punks, there have been similar other characters that haven't really gone over the top. So as long as he was firmly in that in those roots, I thought that he was fine. It was really when the second run, the Fiend character started it started doing the more supernatural things, the more demonic things. That things were kind of starting to get a little unravelly, diba? Parang okay, this has to exist in its own dimension, in its own universe, kasi it's not quite like anything else that's happening over in the rest of the company, of the show, diba? Kasi when you're just Bray Wyatt, the leader of the Wyatt family, you're still leading a bunch of men, and then your main goal is to fuck with everyone's heads, and you still have a pretty human motivation to do things. But if you're a demon now, then I think that's a whole different story. That's a whole different kind of story that you're telling. And while it was entertaining, I felt like it was above yung mga quote unquote trivial pursuits that athletes and sports entertainers were getting up to. Like I don't think the Fiend needed to win the Universal Championship. Parang what good does a Fiend, what use does a Fiend have for a human championship belt? Anong purpose niya dun?
I think the bigger problem with having the Fiend win the Universal Championship, that we're getting specific here, is how do you get it off of the Fiend?
Yeah.
Saw that it was a corner that WWE was placed in 2019 or 2020 when they had Goldberg basically spear the Fiend into oblivion and take the Universal Championship. So I still can't tell you if a horror character should even be made world champion, because to WWE and The Undertaker's credit, I guess it worked in the 90s when The Undertaker was WWE champion. And by the time that The Undertaker had his last run as world champion when he was facing Edge or Batista, diba, in 2007, 2008, medyo, ano na siya eh, combo na siya eh. Yung gimmick ni Undertaker, it was like bits and pieces of the Mortician, the Zombie, the American Badass. So it's not the same as like the Fiend, which was just a totally different beast na 100% demonyo.
Speaking of the whole issue about how to get the championship off the Fiend, diba? There was a huge problem about how to go about having the Fiend lose to the yung pinaka infamous and notorious example of this was Hell in a Cell 2019, the Fiend versus Seth Rollins for the Universal Championship, diba? They couldn't really beat the Fiend via a normal pinfall or submission. So what they had there was a weird disqualification kind of finish in a Hell in a Cell, which makes zero sense, which was why people hated it so much, diba? That some people, those that we know, some of them we know, diba? They stopped watching wrestling altogether because of how fed up they were of that narrative decision. Kasi yun nga, it presented a problem unto itself, talaga, na nobody could figure out how to fix. And that's why I also say na when you mix the humans with the horrors, you're really gonna have a problem unless you find a way to, creatively write yourself out of it. Talaga. Kaya that was why I think that's the biggest reason why I feel like these things have no place or have a really distant place to in the rest of in the sphere of pro wrestling as a whole. Kasi it's still a sport, diba? It still puts the sport in sports entertainment. So if you cross over too much in the entertainment side, you're gonna run into some problems that are bound to piss people off one way or another.
So for you, a horror character like the Fiend or maybe an Abaddon should never be a champion.
Unless you can establish like a really good motivation, which is actually not hard. Ang problema lang is hindi nila ginawa. Like nobody said, Bray himself wasn't apparently asked to write like a motivation for the Fiend going after the Universal Championship, diba? Like you can easily say naman na, I want to rule the WWE or something like that. I want to bring it to its knees and create and sow havoc and create chaos. But I don't think they ever went around to doing that. They just really went about having the Fiend be some sort of strange demon character.
If anything, yung character ni Bray Wyatt as the Fiend, meron din siyang long-lasting legacy in the sense that there are two big stars in the WWE whose character trajectories were forever altered because of their interactions with him in Seth freaking Rollins and Finn Balor. Diba? Yung masasabi natin, both in kayfabe and I guess from a character analysis standpoint, that by crossing paths with the Fiend, they were corrupted, or yung dark side nila talagang na-siphon out nitong si Bray Wyatt. So that led to Seth Rollins becoming the Monday Night Messiah, diba? Yung naging rin siya, very delulu na character. Got Finn Balor briefly turning heel in NXT before he became just too cool to be a heel. But then now, as the veteran of the Judgment Day, you see that influence, I guess, paying off years down the road. So I'm taking some good rin in spite of the not so good character.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. But those things that you mentioned kasi are characteristic changes, which is fine. I don't mind those because those are character pieces, they're dramatic pieces. They don't quite get tangled up in the sports entertainment. So okay lang yun. It's just that when you don't properly justify and write the things that need to be put kailangan ni effort, diba? It all falls apart, and I think that's why some people, or a good portion of the fan base, aren't really into the horror stuff, like maybe a Jim Cornette or whatever. So I think maybe had the Fiend really flourished under the Triple H regime or something like that, I think it would have been a lot better. But we didn't get the full breadth of it, diba? Kasi Bray unfortunately passed.
Yeah. I will say that I do believe in my heart of hearts na horror has a place in wrestling.
Sure, yeah. It does.
Diba? In 2004, 2005, I got a kick out of seeing The Undertaker play mind games with people. When someone like a JBL would piss off The Undertaker, like, shit really got serious kasi na-involved na si Undertaker. So I really appreciated that. And I don't know who Bray Wyatt's heir apparent will be, but I know that person exists. I know that somewhere down the road, there will be a young wrestler or a young wrestling fan who will grow up and enter the industry and pick up from where Bray left off.
Yeah, syempre, inspired na yan for sure. Like, we all of us, even you and me, as part of the wrestling industry, we will have inspired someone to take up the cowl, if you will, to say in it. I don't know who that is. I don't know if they're already in the business. I don't even know if it's Vincent and Dutch, but
Brody and Bray.
Yeah. And I don't know if they're an active wrestler now, is what I'm saying. But I know they exist. These things always come around. They are cyclical in our business, in our industry, and it's only a matter of time. I hope billions of people in the world, and for sure, there's going to be a new creative genius to take up the mantle of Wyndham Rotunda.
Yeah. On that note, that brings us to the end of our proper tribute for the late great Wyndham Rotunda, Bray Wyatt. We forever will miss Bray Wyatt. Ngayon pa lang, diba? Only 2 months since he left us. Ramdam na natin how big of a void he has left, both in the industry and in the world at large. So, wherever he is, we hope he is at peace, and we also hope na somehow, somewhere, yung love ng wrestling community for everything that Bray Wyatt did, it will parlay itself into maybe the spiritual successor of the Bray Wyatt character, whichever incarnation they so choose to mold it under. But for now, we leave you with just wishing everybody a happy Halloween. If you want to spend this week with your deceased loved ones by paying tribute to them, going to yung mga puntod nila, diba? We hope that you're safe. We hope that you spend this time then with your family. If you needed this time to just take a break from everything going on, we hope that our podcast could have played a small part in letting you just recharge and detach from the hustle and bustle of your daily grind. If there's anything else that you want to talk to us about, even whether it's like Halloween related or Bray Wyatt related, you know where to find us. Our usual social media pages are at Wrestling2XPod on Twitter and TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Spotify. It is at Wrestling Podcast. No live stream for this week because our friends over at the Pod Network are also going to be taking some time to spend it with their families and their departed loved ones. But we will catch you on Spotify as always when we drop our episode, just to process everything that happened this week, and we'll catch you on the next live stream. That will be on November 9, Thursday at 7 p.m. on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, and it will also be on the audio-only version on Spotify. Until then, follow us on social media at Row is War, at Chino Supersized, at EML_Meister, at Monday Night Rowan, and at _Stan C. On behalf of Ro Moran, my name is Stan C, saying thank you very much. This is another episode of the Wrestling Podcast in the books. Stay safe, stay healthy, and don't be a dick. Wrestling Podcast out. Bye-bye.
Peace.
The opinions of podcast creators, hosts, and guests are not necessarily reflective of the official stance of the Pod Network Entertainment, its hosts, or other network programs. The content created by the people behind the podcast is personal and not meant to harm any religion, ethnicity, group, organization, company, or individual.